You woke up this morning, but did you wake up with intention? Most people open their eyes and dive straight into chaos, emails, notifications, worries, but champions, people who lead their lives, they begin with clarity. They begin with questions. Questions that activate the mind, command focus, and anchor the soul. So today, let's change the game. Before the noise of the world floods in, ask yourself these 10 questions. Because the quality of your questions determines the quality of your life. What am I grateful for today? This question isn't just about gratitude, it's about chemistry. You're literally rewiring your brain, boosting dopamine and serotonin to fuel focus and joy. Gratitude makes your brain a fertile ground for growth. What are my top 3 priorities today? Without direction, you'll drift. This question locks in your GPS. No more wasting time on what doesn't matter. Get laser sharp. One day of focus can change your entire trajectory. Who do I want to be today? Not what you want to do, but who you want to be. That's identity. Character. Asking this activates the part of your brain responsible for discipline, morality, and self-respect. Step into that version of yourself. What does success look like today? Define it before the world does. Is it peace? Is it progress? Is it showing up fully? Success isn't just a destination. It's a mindset earned by intention. What am I avoiding? Shadows don't disappear when ignored. They grow. Face the hard thing. Name it. This question demands honesty, and honesty is the foundation of transformation. Who needs me at my best today? This is bigger than you. When you realize others are counting on your strength, you'll rise. Purpose makes you powerful. Show up like someone's life depends on it, because sometimes it does. What challenge can I embrace today? Not avoid, not fear, embrace. Challenges are weights for your mental gym. Resistance creates resilience. Lean in. What would the highest version of me do today? Speak to your future self. Listen. That voice is your compass. Let it guide your choices, the gap between where you are and where you want to be. It's built one aligned action at a time. What can I let go of today? Anger,
doubt, guilt,
old narratives. Release the weight, lighten your mind, power flows through an uncluttered soul. What am I excited for today? Fuel your fire. Anticipation is power. Even a small spark of joy can carry you through a hard day. Create it. Chase it. You don't need the world to change. You just need a better morning. And that begins with you. Ask the right questions, and your answers will shape a life worth living. Wake up. Speak truth to your mind. Lead the day, or the day will lead you. Let's rise. Let's question. Let's conquer. Self-inquiry triggers awareness in a way that few other habits can. It's not just a mental exercise, it's a neurobiological event. Every time you ask yourself a deep, intentional question, especially in the early hours of the morning, you light up specific parts of your brain that are responsible for focus, planning, decision, making, and emotional regulation. Morning is the most critical period for setting the tone of your day. Your brain, especially your prefrontal cortex, is still highly plastic during the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking. This is the time when your mental state is most open to programming. Most people unknowingly allow the outside world, news, social media, messages, to take control of this sensitive window. But if instead you take control through self-inquiry, you activate a very different outcome awareness. Awareness is the bedrock of transformation. You cannot change what you are unaware of. You cannot control what you cannot first observe. When you begin your day with a question like, what am I feeling right now? Or what do I want out of this day? You are switching on your inner observer. You're no longer just existing. You're becoming a conscious participant in your own life. This awareness pulls you out of autopilot mode. It puts you in the driver's seat. The human brain loves routine. It defaults to habits, but not all habits are helpful. When you don't question your thoughts, your actions become reactions. You end up reliving the same day over and over again without ever evolving. Asking yourself questions in the morning breaks that cycle. It interrupts the unconscious momentum and replaces it with conscious choice. The magic of self-inquiry lies in its simplicity. A well-placed question doesn't need to be complex to be powerful. What's the most important thing I need to do today? Is a question that can stop procrastination before it even starts. What is bothering me right now can reveal suppressed emotions that would otherwise sabotage your mood and behavior. The moment you ask, you create a gap, a pause in your reactive patterns. In that gap, there is space for clarity, intention, and direction. Neuroscience tells us that asking ourselves questions actually activates the default mode network, DMN, of the brain. This network is involved in self-referential thought and introspection. When engaged properly, it helps us evaluate our goals, assess our emotional state, and even regulate our stress. But more than just triggering brain activity, self-inquiry trains your mind to search for better answers. Our brains are naturally problem-solving machines. When you ask it a question, It starts working, even in the background, to find a solution. This is why sometimes after asking yourself a powerful question in the morning, the answer may not come immediately. But throughout the day, your subconscious keeps looking. That awareness becomes a filter through which you experience everything. Now consider the difference between a person who begins their morning by asking, "What does success look like today?" versus someone who wakes up scrolling, reacting, or dreading their to-do list. The first person is aligned, focused, and mentally prepared. The second is already behind before the day begins. Self-inquiry doesn't eliminate struggle, it equips you to face it with presence and power. Because once you're aware of what you want, what you fear, what you're avoiding, you can act on it. Think of your brain like a camera. The question you ask in the morning is like adjusting the lens. It brings certain things into focus and blurs out distractions. If you begin your day with vague, scattered thoughts, you'll get vague, scattered results. But if you start with one or two powerful questions, your focus narrows, your clarity sharpens. Suddenly, you're not just having a day, you're leading one. This is especially important in a world that bombards you with information and choices. Without self-inquiry, your awareness gets hijacked by someone else's priorities. Ads, trends, headlines, all designed to grab your attention. But when you take even 5 minutes to ask yourself, what matters to me today? Or what do I need to let go of? You create a mental shield. You become responsive instead of reactive. This is not a luxury, it's a necessity in the modern age. Mental fatigue, decision paralysis, burnout. These are symptoms of an untrained mind, one that never learned to pause and ask the right questions. There's another layer to this emotional awareness. Self-inquiry isn't just about productivity. It's also about honesty. What am I afraid of right now? Or am I holding on to something that's draining me? These questions may feel uncomfortable, but they are essential. Ignoring your emotional state doesn't make it disappear. It makes it louder in the background. When you give your emotions a voice in the morning, you free up mental space for action and peace. You stop carrying invisible weight. And then there's the habit-forming nature of questions. When done consistently, your brain begins to expect this inquiry. It starts anticipating the questions you usually ask. This anticipation primes your neural circuits, making it easier to enter a focused, reflective state each morning. Just like brushing your teeth conditions your body for physical hygiene, asking the right questions conditions your mind for mental hygiene. Over time, this builds a new identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who is intentional, self-aware, and clear-headed. That's not just psychology, it's biology. Repetition rewires the brain. Morning questions aren't just tools, they're rituals. They tell your brain and body, we're not living on autopilot today. We're showing up with purpose. So the next time your alarm goes off and your hand reaches for your phone, pause. Don't rush into the world's agenda. Ask a question, just one. And let that question bring you home to your awareness, your focus, your truth. Because the difference between a life you survive and a life you lead begins with the questions you dare to ask when the world is still quiet and your mind is finally listening. Mental framing shapes behavior in ways that are both subtle and powerful. The way you begin your morning, the very first thoughts you allow into your consciousness, can serve as either a foundation or a fracture point for everything that follows. Your brain operates much like a lens, constantly framing your reality through the mental perspective you choose, consciously or unconsciously. And the truth is, most people don't choose. They let the day decide for them. They let their environment, social media, emails, or stress dictate the mental frame they live through. But here's the secret. When you learn to ask yourself intentional questions each morning, you take back that control. You don't just react to life, you begin to direct it. Framing begins with attention. What you pay attention to becomes your reality. If you wake up asking what could go wrong today, or worse, thinking about what already went wrong yesterday, your brain starts scanning for threats. This is not weakness, it's biology. The human mind is hardwired for survival, and left unchecked, it defaults to negativity and protection. But when you consciously ask, what can I create today? Or what does a win look like today? You are giving your brain a new assignment. You're telling it to seek out opportunity instead of danger. That shift in framing does more than influence mood. It changes behavior, motivation, and even physiology. Research in cognitive psychology shows that our interpretation of events often matters more than the events themselves. Two people can face the same challenge. One sees a setback, the other sees a setup. One retreats, the other rises. The difference, framing. And that framing begins with the inner dialogue you establish first thing in the morning. Questions like, what is one thing I can control today? Or how can I show up fully today? are not fluffy morning rituals. They are frameworks that give meaning to your actions. When your actions have meaning, they become sustainable. You don't just do things because you have to, you do them because they align with a deeper narrative you've chosen to live by. This is especially important when it comes to habits and discipline. Most people struggle with consistency because their mental frame is built around obligation instead of purpose. If your morning question is, how can I get through this day? Then your actions become about endurance, not excellence. But if your morning begins with, what kind of leader, student, parent, or creator do I want to be today? Then every action, even the small ones, becomes part of a meaningful pursuit. That difference in framing can determine whether you approach your goals with energy or exhaustion. Another powerful element of framing is that it determines how you respond to failure. If your mental frame is based on perfection, then mistakes will feel like the end of progress. But if your frame is based on growth, then every failure becomes a feedback loop. Morning questions like, what lesson am I ready to learn today? Or what feedback am I open to receiving? Invite humility and openness. These are not soft traits, they are superpowers. They help you adapt, evolve, and stay in the game when others burn out. Even your physical health is influenced by how you frame your day. Studies in neuroscience and behavioral medicine show that your perception of stress influences how it affects your body. Two people can experience the same level of pressure. One frames it as challenge, the other as threat. The first experiences a surge in adrenaline followed by peak focus. The second experiences anxiety, fatigue, and cortisol overload. The difference again is framing, and it all starts with what you tell yourself in the first hour of the day. This is why high performers, visionaries, and emotionally resilient people often have one thing in common: a consistent practice of intentional thought at the start of the day. They don't wait for clarity to show up, they create it. They sit in stillness, reflect, and ask. They don't just check tasks off a list. They check in with their inner compass. This is where their alignment comes from. Not from motivation alone, but from framing their mission clearly every single day. It's important to understand that framing is not about positive thinking or pretending everything is okay. It's about asking yourself powerful, realistic questions that focus your energy on what matters. A question like, what can I let go of today? Can instantly release unnecessary tension. A question like, what can I be proud of from yesterday? Can instantly reinforce your momentum. These aren't tricks, they're tools. Tools that shape your emotional, cognitive, and behavioral responses to life. Consistency in framing also strengthens your identity. Every time you wake up and choose to think like the person you want to become, you are reinforcing that identity in your neural pathways. Over time, that identity becomes less of a concept and more of a reality. You stop trying to become confident, disciplined, or focused. You start being it. And it starts every morning with the frame you set. You don't have to ask all the right questions every single day, but you do need to ask some. Even one intentional question can shift your emotional frequency and behavioral strategy for the entire day. It's like opening a window in a foggy room. Suddenly you can see. Suddenly there's air to breathe. And in that moment of clarity, your brain becomes a place of power again. We live in a world of distractions where it's easy to lose sight of who we are and what we want. That's why mental framing through morning questions is not optional for those who seek intentional living. It is essential. Because if you don't shape your own thoughts, the world will shape them for you. And the world, by default, does not have your clarity, your mission, or your peace in mind. So the next time you open your eyes, ask yourself something that matters. Something that focuses you, that grounds you, that pulls your mind toward the person you're becoming. Let your thoughts not be random but deliberate. Let your mental frame become your strongest foundation. Because when your mind is right, your life follows. And it all begins with a simple, powerful question asked before the noise of the world has a chance to speak. Identity-based questions reinforce purpose because they dig beneath the surface of what you do and bring your attention to who you truly are or who you are becoming. This shift from doing to being is the foundation of real transformation. Most people live their lives chasing tasks, goals, and outcomes. They ask, what do I need to do today? Or what must I complete? These are useful questions, but they're not powerful enough to sustain long-term drive or personal evolution. The deeper power comes when you ask, who am I becoming through what I do? That question reframes your entire relationship with life. It moves you from performance to purpose, from reaction to intention. The human brain is designed to conserve energy, which is why it favors repetition and familiarity. This is why so many people get stuck in cycles. They repeat the same behaviors even if they no longer serve their highest good. But identity-based questions disrupt this loop. When you wake up and ask, what kind of person do I want to be today? You are interrupting autopilot mode. You're forcing the brain to evaluate current behaviors and align them with a higher standard. That act alone, bringing identity into focus, awakens the prefrontal cortex, which governs planning, decision-making, and moral reasoning. In simple terms, asking who you want to be increases the likelihood that your actions will match your values. This alignment is where real power lies. When your actions are congruent with your identity, there is harmony. You feel more confident, more clear, more energized. You no longer need to rely on willpower to push through challenges because your behavior flows naturally from a sense of who you are. But when there's a mismatch, when you say you want to be disciplined but act in laziness, or you want to be kind but speak in anger, there's inner conflict. That tension drains energy, clouds focus, and weakens self-esteem. Identity-based questions prevent this. They keep you aligned. They ask not just what you'll do, but why and who you'll become through it. Purpose is not something you find once and keep forever. It evolves. It deepens. And the more you revisit your identity, the clearer your purpose becomes. Asking, what does my best self look like today? Or what decision would the future version of me make right now? Connects the present moment to the larger journey. These questions act like a compass, guiding you through distractions and dilemmas. They don't give you all the answers, but they refine your focus so you can choose better actions. In neuroscience, this is referred to as self-referencing. When you think about yourself in the future, you activate regions of the brain involved in long-term planning and delayed gratification. This is crucial in a world filled with instant rewards and constant temptations. When you start your morning by asking about your identity, you're actually reinforcing neural pathways that help you resist short-term pleasures for long-term gains. You're wiring your brain to choose growth over comfort, legacy over laziness. Identity-based questions are also powerful because they cultivate emotional resilience. Life will always bring uncertainty, stress, and setbacks. You can't control every circumstance, but you can control who you become in response to them. When your purpose is tied to your identity, like being a strong leader, a present parent, a kind human, you don't break as easily under pressure. You remember why you're doing it all in the first place. Your actions gain emotional weight. That weight becomes your anchor in the storm. These questions also impact the way others see you. When you show up consistently with clarity of identity, people trust you more. Your words carry more weight. Your presence becomes impactful, not because you're the loudest or flashiest, but because you're grounded in who you are. Identity creates presence, and presence creates influence. Most people never take the time to ask themselves these kinds of questions, especially not daily. But the truth is, identity is not fixed. It's fluid. Every morning you wake up, you are given another chance to shape it. You are one decision away from reinforcing the version of yourself you want to become or betraying it. The difference is whether or not you ask, whether or not you reflect, whether or not you choose to act from who you want to be rather than from old patterns of who you've been. Even asking a question like, what would the strongest version of me do today? Triggers an immediate shift in mindset. That question invites action. It creates a mirror between where you are and where you want to be. And in that mirror, you see not just your potential, but the gap you're responsible for closing. The beauty of identity-based questions is that they are adaptable. You can tailor them to different areas of your life. In your health, how would a healthy person fuel their body today? In your relationships, how does a loving partner speak and listen? In your work, how does a world-class professional show up on a Monday morning? These aren't questions to ponder for hours. They're meant to trigger clarity, and from clarity, commitment. Over time, these questions stop being just morning routines. They become inner dialogue. The voice of your higher self becomes louder, stronger, more frequent. And the more you listen to that voice, the more natural it feels to act in accordance with it. This is where purpose becomes effortless, not because life gets easier, but because you get clearer. Identity is not found. It is chosen, shaped, and sharpened. And the tool you use to do that is your attention. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. When your attention is directed inward with honest questions about who you want to be, you bring purpose to everything you do, every conversation, every decision, every moment. And when your days are filled with purpose-driven actions, your life becomes something far greater than a list of achievements. It becomes a legacy. So ask the questions. Not once, but daily. Revisit them. Refine them. Let them evolve with you. Because the answers you get today might be different from the answers you get a year from now. That's not inconsistency. That's growth. And growth begins not with doing more, but with becoming more. And becoming more begins the moment you dare to ask, who am I choosing to be today? Time is not just a number on a clock. It's the most valuable asset you'll ever own. And yet, it is the one resource that gets spent whether or not you decide to use it wisely. Every morning when you wake up, you are given the same gift as the most successful people on the planet, 24 hours. That's 1 for 40 minutes. The difference between those who achieve their goals and those who don't isn't talent, money, or luck. It's how they choose to direct those minutes. When you ask yourself, what is the most important thing I need to do today? You are doing more than making a to-do list. You are setting a target. You are clarifying your mission. And you are placing value on what matters rather than letting the day decide for you. The brain thrives on clarity. When your mind knows what matters most, your energy follows. Your focus sharpens. You stop spreading yourself thin trying to do everything and start investing yourself deeply in the one thing that truly counts. That question, what is the most important thing I need to do today, forces you to prioritize. And prioritization is not about getting more done. It's about getting the right things done. It's about aligning your action with your purpose and your highest values. Too many people confuse business with productivity. They wake up and jump straight into activity. Checking messages, replying to emails, reacting to requests. They stay busy all day, but at the end of it, they feel empty. Why? Because motion doesn't equal meaning. Without clarity, activity becomes chaos. But when you begin your day with a decisive question like this, you regain control of your time, your direction, and ultimately your life. This question also cultivates discipline. When you identify the most important task, you are essentially making a promise to yourself. You are choosing to rise above distraction and direct your willpower towards something meaningful. This simple act of choosing helps develop what psychologists call executive function, the mental skill set that helps you plan, focus, and follow through. When you act on your highest priority each day, your brain learns that your goals are non-negotiable. It builds mental toughness and integrity, the ability to do what you say you will do. It's also important to understand that this isn't just about work. The most important thing can be in any area of your life, your health, your relationships, your personal growth. Some days, the most important thing might be showing up fully for someone you love. Other days, it might be completing a project, honoring a deadline, or making a difficult decision you've been avoiding. The point is to identify it clearly and early so you can bring your full presence to it. That's where progress is made, not in scattered effort, but in focused execution. Asking this question also helps you navigate the noise. We live in a world of infinite inputs, notifications, demands, opinions. If you don't decide what's important, the world will do it for you. And its version of important usually means urgent, not meaningful. By asking what you need to do, you stop outsourcing your priorities to someone else's agenda. You become the architect of your own time, and in doing so, you reclaim a sense of purpose and power. There's another layer to this question. It holds you accountable. Once you identify your most important task, the rest of your decisions either support it or sabotage it. You start to recognize the difference between what's essential and what's merely urgent. That awareness sharpens your decision making. You begin to say no more often, not out of selfishness, but out of clarity, because every yes is a trade-off and every no is a declaration of what truly matters. In cognitive science, there's a principle called goal shielding. It means when you focus deeply on one primary objective, your brain naturally begins to block out distractions and irrelevant information. This is not just psychological, it's neurological. The more clearly you define your target, the more efficiently your brain allocates energy toward achieving it. This is why elite athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs often begin their day by clarifying their most important task. They are training their brains to channel attention like a laser, not a floodlight. Even emotionally, this question brings stability. It quiets anxiety. When you don't know what matters, everything feels urgent. But when you do know what matters, everything else becomes background noise. This doesn't mean you ignore responsibilities. It means you anchor yourself to what drives the most meaning and impact. That anchor keeps you centered, especially in moments of overwhelm. Some days, your most important task may be difficult, uncomfortable, or even intimidating. That's okay, in fact. It's expected. Growth never happens in comfort zones. But when you start your day with the question, you are mentally preparing yourself to face that discomfort head on. You're not waiting for motivation, you're setting direction. And motivation tends to follow clarity and movement. Once you begin, even if it's small, momentum builds. Confidence grows. One win leads to another. There's no perfect formula for what your most important thing should be. But what matters is that you define it consciously. Don't wait for the world to dictate your direction. Don't let your phone, your inbox, or your stress write the script of your day. Take 5 minutes to reflect. Ask yourself, if I could only do one thing today that would move me forward in the most meaningful way, what would it be? Then protect that task. Guard it with your time, your energy, your intention. Because when you win the first hour, you set the tone for the rest of the day. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be clear. And you don't need to get everything done. You just need to get the right thing done. Consistency with this one question will change the way you think, work, and live. It will sharpen your purpose, strengthen your focus, and align your time with what truly matters. One clear target every day. That's how greatness is built, one focused morning at a time. Gratitude is one of the most powerful forces in the human experience. It's more than just saying, thank you. It's a mindset, a perspective, a way of interpreting reality. When you begin your day by asking, what am I grateful for today? You're not just listing positive things. You're choosing how you see the world. That choice is transformational because gratitude shifts your brain from a state of lack to a state of abundance. And when your mind is rooted in abundance, your decisions, your energy, and your emotions begin to align with strength rather than scarcity. Most people wake up and immediately start thinking about what's missing. The problems, the stress, the demands waiting for them. This mindset activates the brain's threat response. It puts the nervous system on edge, cortisol rises, focus narrows. The day begins from a place of anxiety and resistance. But when you intentionally shift your focus to gratitude, something changes. Your brain begins to release dopamine and serotonin, the chemicals that foster happiness and calm. The nervous system relaxes. The heart rate slows. Clarity returns. In that moment, your body and mind are no longer reacting. They are receiving. And in that state, you are better equipped to handle everything that's ahead. Gratitude doesn't mean denying pain or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing to notice what's good despite what's difficult. It means acknowledging the small victories, the quiet blessings, the moments of beauty that are often overlooked. When you practice this regularly, your brain begins to wire itself for resilience. You train yourself to seek strength in struggle, to find lessons in hardship, to recognize growth even in chaos. That's not just positivity, it's wisdom. Neuroscience supports this. Studies have shown that daily gratitude practices actually change the structure of the brain. They increase activity in the medial prefrontal cortex, the area associated with learning and decision-making. They also reduce activation in the amygdala, which processes fear and threat. In simple terms, gratitude rewires your brain to be calmer, clearer, and more focused. And when you start your morning with this wiring, you carry that stability into every action and interaction. Gratitude also cultivates presence. When you ask what you're grateful for today, you pull yourself into the now. You stop projecting into the future or dwelling in the past. You engage with this moment, with what's real and available right in front of you. That shift into presence improves not only your mood, but your performance. Whether you're working, training, speaking, or simply connecting with others, gratitude sharpens your presence. It removes distraction, it replaces comparison with appreciation. And in that state, you are more focused, more grounded, more impactful. Another critical benefit of gratitude is that it neutralizes entitlement. When you focus on what you have rather than what you think you deserve, you develop humility. And humility is the foundation of personal growth. It keeps you teachable. It keeps you connected to the journey. It reminds you that everything you experience, every opportunity, every breath, every relationship is a gift. And when you see life as a gift, you treat it with more care, more respect, more passion. Gratitude also strengthens relationships. When you express appreciation for others, you increase connection. When you acknowledge the efforts of those around you, you build trust. Even silently appreciating someone changes how you treat them. You become more patient, more compassionate, more present. And those shifts ripple outward, creating a culture of respect and support. If you want to lead better, love deeper, and live more fully, start with gratitude. It's also important to understand that gratitude is not something you wait for. It's something you generate. You don't need the perfect situation to feel grateful. You need the right perspective. Even on hard days, there is always something to be thankful for. A second chance, a kind word, a body that still breathes, a lesson that shaped you. Gratitude is not the result of greatness. It's the path to it. Because when you're grateful, you're more energized, more focused, and more committed. You stop chasing fulfillment and start living from it. This question, what am I grateful for today, may seem simple, but its effects are profound. It's a mental filter. And what you focus on, you feel. If you focus on stress, you feel overwhelmed. If you focus on progress, you feel empowered. If you focus on lack, you feel empty. But if you focus on gratitude, you feel full. And from that fullness, you have more to give, more love, more creativity, more strength. That's how you change your day. That's how you change your life. There's a reason high performers, elite athletes, top CEOs, and world-class creators build gratitude into their morning routines. It sets the emotional tone. It protects mental clarity. It aligns attitude with altitude. They don't wait until things are perfect to feel thankful. They build thankfulness into the way they operate. That's a choice you can make too. Every morning, before you open your phone, check the news or let the world in. Pause. Ask the question. Answer it with intention. Write it down if you can. Speak it aloud. Let it shape your mindset before anything else does. Over time, gratitude becomes more than a practice. It becomes a lens. You start seeing beauty in the mundane. You find joy in the ordinary. You recognize progress even when it's small. And that perspective doesn't just make you feel better. It makes you be better, more focused, more centered, more aligned with your values. And from that alignment, your actions become more effective. Your days become more meaningful. Your presence becomes more powerful. Gratitude isn't weakness. It's not softness. It's strength. It's a strategic advantage in a world that tries to distract, divide, and drain you. When you lead with gratitude, you lead with perspective. When you act with gratitude, you act with purpose. And when you live with gratitude, you live with power. Not because everything is easy, but because you've trained your mind to see what's possible. So don't skip the question. Don't brush it off because it feels simple. Simple things practiced consistently are the things that shape a powerful life. Every morning, take that moment. Ask yourself what you're grateful for, and watch how that single question transforms your mindset, your habits, and your life from the inside out. When you wake up in the morning and ask yourself, what challenge can I overcome today? You are not merely preparing for a task. You are choosing to meet resistance with strength. You are declaring your intention to grow. Life is full of obstacles. Some are small and daily, minor inconveniences, tough conversations, difficult habits to break. Others are larger: loss, failure, fear, doubt. But in every challenge lies an opportunity to expand your capacity, to shape your character, to strengthen your discipline. When you start your day by actively identifying a challenge you can face and overcome, you shift from being reactive to proactive. You stop waiting for life to test you and start choosing your tests. You put yourself in the position of power. This question develops something vital: mental resilience. Resilience is not about pretending to be unaffected by struggle. It's about being willing to face it, to lean into it, and to extract wisdom from it. The mind becomes strong through resistance, just like the body does. And when you ask, what challenge can I overcome today? You invite that resistance into your life consciously. You stop avoiding difficulty, and instead, you start using it as fuel. That shift is how leaders are built, how warriors are formed, how greatness is created. Because easy never made anyone stronger. Comfort never forced anyone to grow. Facing challenges isn't just about the task itself. It's about who you become through the process. When you willingly engage with a challenge, especially early in the day, you activate the brain's problem-solving centers. Your focus sharpens, your motivation rises, and your confidence builds. You set a tone for the rest of your day that says, I am not here to hide from struggle. I am here to rise through it. That tone affects your posture, your thoughts, your decisions, and even how others respond to you. It creates momentum. And momentum is one of the most powerful psychological forces you can generate. Challenges aren't barriers, they are blueprints. Every time you face one, you are given the opportunity to build something stronger within yourself. Discipline, courage, patience, adaptability. These are not traits you are born with. They are developed through practice, through experience, through hardship. But only if you step into the arena. Only if you meet the day with intention. And that's exactly what this question forces you to do. It forces you to take ownership of your struggle instead of letting it take ownership of you. Overcoming challenges also enhances your self-trust. Every time you complete something difficult, whether it's getting through a workout, tackling a tough project, breaking a bad habit, or having a hard conversation, you reinforce a message to your subconscious mind. I can count on myself. That message compounds over time. It becomes a belief. And belief in your own ability to endure and overcome is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Because when you trust yourself, you no longer fear the unknown. You no longer retreat at the first sign of resistance. You meet it. You face it. You grow through it. Neuroscience shows that when we overcome difficult tasks, especially those we voluntarily choose, our brain releases dopamine, the chemical of motivation and reward. But more importantly, it strengthens neural pathways associated with willpower and confidence. That means each challenge you overcome makes the next one easier to face. You're not just getting through the day, you're training your mind for the future. You're preparing yourself for bigger missions, tougher battles, and more meaningful victories. It's important to note that the challenge doesn't have to be massive. In fact, small daily challenges are often the most effective in developing long-term strength. Waking up on time, resisting distraction, saying no when you need to, sticking to your diet, staying calm under pressure. These are the quiet battles that build powerful people. When you identify one challenge each morning and commit to overcoming it, you build an inner discipline that compounds. And discipline over time creates freedom, freedom from chaos, freedom from weakness, freedom from regret. There is also a deep emotional benefit to this practice. When you confront a challenge head on, you reduce anxiety, fear grows in avoidance. The longer you wait, the heavier the weight feels. But action shrinks fear. Movement creates confidence. When you move toward the hard thing instead of away from it, you take the power back. You're no longer controlled by dread. You are fueled by determination. You stop being a prisoner of procrastination and start becoming a master of progress. This question also builds identity. Identity is not what you say you are. It's what you repeatedly do. If you start each day by choosing a challenge and overcoming it, your identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids difficulty and start seeing yourself as someone who conquers it. That belief affects everything. It makes you more resilient in relationships, more reliable at work, more honest with yourself. Because deep down, you know you've faced what others avoid. You've stood in the storm and remained standing. There's also something spiritual in this practice. Because in choosing a challenge, you align with a higher version of yourself. The version of you that is not ruled by fear, but guided by purpose. That version of you exists in potential every day. But it only becomes real through action. Through the decision to grow, even when it hurts. Through the willingness to get uncomfortable for the sake of progress. When you choose your challenge every morning, you are choosing to meet that version of yourself and bring it to life. This question, though simple, can rewire your relationship with discomfort. Instead of avoiding struggle, you begin to crave growth. Instead of fearing failure, you begin to welcome the lesson. You start to see that struggle is not the enemy, it is the path. And when you walk that path consistently, you don't just build habits. You build character. You build legacy. You build a life that is not defined by what you escaped from, but by what you overcame. So ask yourself tomorrow morning, what challenge can I overcome today? Look for the resistance. Find the obstacle. Choose the discomfort. And then move. Act, conquer. Because on the other side of that challenge is the version of you that is waiting to emerge. Stronger, smarter, sharper, wiser. And every time you rise to that question, you take one more step toward becoming the person you were always meant to be. When you begin your day by asking yourself, what am I avoiding? You engage in a deep, honest confrontation with your inner world. This question is not about shame or guilt. It's about awareness and accountability. It requires you to pause and turn inward. To stop running from the things that drain your energy quietly, the unfinished conversations, the decisions you've delayed, the responsibilities that linger in the shadows of your mind. Avoidance is one of the most subtle forms of self-sabotage. It's easy to overlook because it hides behind distractions and business. But the longer you avoid something, the more power it gains over your mind, your time, and your potential. Avoidance is not always obvious. Sometimes it looks like overworking in one area of life to escape from another. It looks like scrolling endlessly instead of facing the next step. It looks like being too busy. To call that person, to submit that application, to clean that space, to face that truth. But no matter how it shows up, avoidance always costs you. It costs you clarity, peace, progress. It creates mental clutter and emotional noise. That's why asking this question each morning is so vital. It shines a light into the dark corners of your life, the ones you've been too afraid or too tired to face. And in that light, transformation begins. When you identify what you're avoiding, you take the first step toward freedom, because naming it removes its power. Once it's named, you can't pretend it doesn't exist. You can't justify the delay with empty excuses. You've pulled it into consciousness, you've taken responsibility. And that act alone is powerful. It's where discipline begins. It's where self-mastery starts. Because the ability to face what you don't want to face is the foundation of inner strength. And strength is not built through ease. It's built through engagement with what's hard. The brain is wired to avoid discomfort. It wants to protect you. But it often doesn't understand that facing discomfort is sometimes exactly what leads to growth. When you practice confronting what you avoid, you begin to rewire those instincts. You show your brain that you are safe in discomfort, that you can survive the hard things. And over time, discomfort stops being a threat. It becomes a signal of where you should lean in, a signal of where growth is hiding, a signal that you are close to something meaningful. This question also cultivates integrity. Integrity is when your actions match your values, but avoidance breaks that alignment. It keeps you living in dissonance. You say one thing, but do another. You value health, but avoid the gym. You value connection, but avoid the call. You value freedom, but avoid the decisions that create it. Every time you avoid, you weaken the bridge between who you are and who you want to be. But when you face what you've been avoiding, you rebuild that bridge. You begin to trust yourself again, and self-trust is the root of confidence. Avoidance also drains emotional energy. The things you avoid don't go away. They stay lodged in your mind, quietly demanding attention. They resurface in your thoughts, in your dreams, in your conversations. They create stress even if you pretend they don't. But the moment you face them, the weight begins to lift. It doesn't matter how long you've delayed. The act of engagement restores energy. Clarity returns. Movement becomes possible. Avoidance paralyzes. Action liberates. There is also a layer of courage in this question, because to ask what you're avoiding is to admit fear. And fear is not weakness. It is a signal of value. We fear what matters. We avoid what challenges us because it forces us to stretch, to grow, to confront parts of ourselves that are still developing. That confrontation is not easy, but it is sacred. It is the place where transformation happens. Growth does not occur in the absence of fear. It occurs when fear is acknowledged and transcended. And that transcendence begins with honesty. Sometimes the thing you're avoiding is small, an email, a workout, a difficult conversation. Other times it's massive, a life decision, a painful truth, a change you've resisted for years. No matter the size, the principle is the same. What you avoid owns you. What you face, you reclaim. When you make this question a daily practice, you start becoming the architect of your life rather than the prisoner of your fears. You begin shaping your days with intention. You build momentum. You build strength. You build character. Avoidance also blocks creativity. It keeps your mental bandwidth tied up in the background like apps running on a phone that drain the battery. When you close the loops, when you face what you're avoiding, you free up that energy. You reclaim focus. Ideas flow more easily. You show up more fully. Creativity doesn't thrive in clutter, it thrives in clarity, and clarity comes through courageous action. You also inspire others when you face what you're avoiding. People may not see the internal battle, but they feel the presence of someone who is whole. Someone who is not running, hiding, or making excuses. Your energy shifts. You carry conviction, you speak with certainty, you move with alignment. And that inspires others to do the same. Leadership is not about perfection. It's about example. And the most powerful example you can set is living in alignment with what you know you must face. There is no perfect time to confront the hard things. Waiting does not make it easier. Clarity does not come through delay. It comes through doing. Through choosing courage over comfort, through choosing progress over perfection, through choosing honesty over avoidance. Every morning, when you ask yourself, what am I avoiding? You give yourself the chance to realign with who you are capable of becoming. You step into the day with open eyes. You stop carrying unnecessary weight. And you begin moving forward. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. Avoidance is a habit, but so is courage. The more you choose to face, the more you become someone who faces. It becomes your identity, your norm, your default. And from that identity, all things become possible. Because the person who consistently confronts what they're avoiding becomes the person who lives without limits, without the internal blockades that keep most people stuck. They become unstoppable not because life gets easier, but because they get stronger. So ask yourself the question. Be honest, no judgment. Just clarity. What am I avoiding? And once you know the answer, act. Even a small step is a massive win. Even the intention to move forward breaks the cycle. You are not here to live in fear. You are here to rise through it. You are here to face what others run from. You are here to become someone who doesn't hide from challenge, but grows from it. And that journey starts the moment you stop avoiding, the moment you choose truth, the moment you choose growth over comfort. That moment is now.